all about Friday. Oh yeah. I'm too busy disco. Well, thank you very much for the Donna, the dragon. I appreciate that very much. Yes, I saw that you could. Yeah, you can chat. That's good. That's very, very good. Okay, folks, I have a lot of buttons I'm pushing here, so just hang tight. Let me just kind of make sure I'm doing all this correct. And yep, got it. Because before the show begins, there's a lot of stuff that you got to do. Make sure that you got it done right. Because if you don't, then you won't be able to hear me. So, which I don't know if that's such a bad thing. I mean, considering the fact. Okay. All right. So, hello, everybody. Happy Friday to you guys. Happy Friday. I hope that you have you'll mute Chidi if she gets out of it. I hope you guys are having a wonderful, wonderful Friday. We're having, what? It's a paranormal Friday. Anytime it's a paranormal Friday, it's a good Friday to us. And we're excited to be here. And we thank you so much for being here. For those of you on TikTok, subscriber chat is on because within 10 seconds, I started live. The trolls came in. It's like cockroaches. It's like when you turn the lights off, they go, they scatter, and then you turn the lights on, they take off. That's very much like trolls. So anyway, that's what we have now. That's why we have sub chat on. We turn the light on. I agree, Judy Ann. I agree. Okay, folks, so let's get into the presentation because there's a lot that I've got to cover so I can get into this because time is a ticking. And before it's over, before you know it, it is over because the 2 hours will fly by. And that's the truth. 2 hours will fly by. All right. If you want to, first of all, I would ask you to please go to our sponsor's website. Our sponsor's website, of course, is usocc.org. Got you there, didn't I? KGRA, Mr. Producer's like, what? KGRADB radio. So here's what you need to do, guys. Go to KGRAD as in dog, B as in bicycle.com. Well, thank you very much. I've never seen that, Corrine. Thank you. And please click on the shop link. And then what you do is you click my name. Very, very important. And then when you click my name, it takes you to our show page where we have all kinds of products there. And some of them are, again, they have St. Benedict items, which Mr. Producer is showing on the screen. St. Benedict is the patron saint for exorcists as well as police officers. I'm a Benedictine monk that a lot of people, I guess, don't know. I've been saying that for 25 years, but okay. And there's also St. Michael items. And they're really beautiful items. Truly are. The shirts are amazing. There's one, I'm looking at that shirt now, that blue shirt there. Boy, that is spectacular. Of St. Michael. Truly, that is beautiful. Yeah, that's a gorgeous shirt. It's almost like a blue and the St. Michael, it's a radiant light. That's a fantastic shirt. So we have a lot of St. Michael items, a lot of St. Benedict, and some other items as well. So here's what's so great about this. If you go there and you make sure you purchase as many of the items as you want, buy all of them. Oh, but Jack's Paranormal bought 2 of them. Excellent. Thank you. So if you buy all of those products, here's the deal. 100% of the profit that would go to me as a community, because this is a communal effort, we are donating that to the MKS Kids Foundation. It's an orphanage in Uganda, and they are pretty desperate right now for funding because they're self-funded. They're not government funded. So they rely solely on the kind generosity of the few donors that they have, few. So I just ask that you please consider doing that, okay? Oh, I'm glad. That's wonderful, Teresa. Thank you. Thank you guys for ordering it. Thank you. Look, Christmas is going to come right around the corner. I promise you guys, it is going to come. It's almost here. We're only 6 months away. We're going into September. So I assure you that this is a great time now to buy these products. And again, when you buy them, you know that you're helping a wonderful orphanage. And they're beautiful. They're just a beautiful organization. Okay, it's KGRAD as in dog, B as in bicycle, .com. KGRADB. If one of the moderators could put that up there, that would be fantastic. Thank you very much. Yeah, and try to, let's pen that. Thanks, Jax. So if you go to kgradb.com and make sure you click on the shop link and then my name, that's how you find it. It's very easy. And they have all the products there for you. Okay. So that's it. And if you want to go to my website because you're really bored and have nothing else better to do, well, you can go to bishopjameslong.com. Don't know why you really would want to, but if you want to. I mean, hey, there's nothing, okay. So anyway, it's bishopjameslong.com. And then, of course, the church's website, well, that's usocc.org. I want to remind everybody that tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we do have our fun-filled, exciting night prayer. I love night prayer. And so no matter what kind of day you've had today, night prayer is a time, really, seriously, it's a time for all of us to get together and pray for each other. Because, we need to. We need to know that we're kind of in this together. So it looks like a lot of the trolls have scattered back under the rocks in which they came. So we might open the chat for everybody, because that's what happens. When you turn on the sub chat, and the trolls just scatter and then they leave. And then once the numbers kind of go down, you're like, okay, the trolls are under the rocks. And so perhaps maybe in a moment, we might turn it on for everybody. But oh, yeah, that's right. Oh, yeah. Thanks, Judy, for reminding me. Don't forget also your prayer. Well, thank you. Thank you very much for the wings, Anna. Thank you. And thank you guys for the gifts. Very kind of you guys. Thank you, Kathy. Tonight, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have night prayer. Make sure, we had to turn that. Make sure, guys, you put your prayer petitions for night prayer right now. Okay, they have to be in by 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So on my TikTok profile, for those of you who are watching on TikTok, go to my profile and you'll see the video that I made. And for prayer petitions, you'll see it for tonight's night prayer. Just make sure you put your prayer petitions in the comments. Include your first name, that helps, and try to condense it as much as you can. And for everybody else, you got to go to usocc.org. And it says to become a parishioner, click here. Well, it takes you to the Book to the Face group. And Judy Ann posts a picture up there today. Okay. So please make sure, if you guys would do that, it's got to be in by 8 p.m. tonight. And then we'll be happy to pray for your prayer petition. You know what? I encourage all of you, no matter who you are, to join us. And I know that, some people are sending me a message. Some people are sending me messages on Messenger saying, the show's so early. I get it. For those of you on the West Coast, it's 4 o'clock for them. So for the East Coast, it's 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I understand it's 4 p.m. On the West Coast. But usually at 8 o'clock, for some reason, we start picking up, the traffic. It always happens because we're on a little earlier than normal. Oh, it's midnight in UK. Okay, so let's get into our. Oh, and by the way, don't forget, next week. So I'm going to be flying out September the 10th to LA. I'm going to be staying at the Queen Mary for 3 days. And I'll be staying at the very haunted room on the Queen Mary. Judy Ann is going to be serving as executive producers. And so we're very excited about this. We have a lot of things to go over. And I think we're going to enjoy it. I think we're going to enjoy this. So make sure you tune in. So what I'm going to do probably next Friday, is talk about the Queen Mary. I don't want to give too much out because we're making a documentary. If you give everything out on a Friday night prior to going, then it kind of takes the sizzle out. So we'll talk a little bit about some haunted locations, perhaps maybe in Los Angeles, and the Queen Mary will be a part of that. But I don't want to do a whole hour on the Queen Mary, because you do that, then you might as well not even do a documentary. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Right. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm not intimidated at all. I'm really, really excited about it. And I will be going live on that Friday. So I want to let everybody know. Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Kimberly. I am going to be going live on the Queen Mary. And that will be on our September the 12th show. So that should be pretty cool. I'm looking forward to it. And hopefully you are as well. Now, tonight's show, let's get into it, guys, because we have a lot to go over. So we're going to have a good time. And I'm going to have several things packed with me, several of my paranormal equipment. I'm hoping to capture some evidence. I'm hoping to capture some EVPs. Thank you very much. EVP stands for electronic voice phenomena. And I am planning to take several recorders. One, I'm going to be taking this recorder. This is probably one of the best recorders you could have. It's phenomenal. I've had this for many years. It's tested, true friend. This is a very, very good recorder. And I'm also going to be taking another recorder that is ultra sensitive and one of the best, I think, recorders out there. The Tascam. This is fantastic. This really is fantastic. So this is one of the best digital recorders. Both of these are ultra, ultra sensitive. Both of these are. I mean, they will pick up a mouse squeak. I mean, it is just, so I got to be careful about noise pollution or interference or whatever, when I do this EVP, because it's very, very easy to misinterpret something. And so I'm going to be taking that, and I'm looking forward to doing that. All right, let me put this up here. And that's going to be, again, I am leaving on September the 10th. Okay, what in the world? That's the problem. You move something and everything falls over. All right. That's the problem, boys and girls. Well, come on, you dumb, stupid. There. Okay. Nothing like fighting with books. So that's what we're going to do. And I will be taking my digital recorder that I used during Ghost Adventures on the Bobby Mackeys. That is the same recorder that I captured the growl at the Gates of Hell Cemetery. So that recorder is one of the best as well. So there's going to be a lot of equipment. I can only take so much, obviously, because I'm flying out. Don't get possessed. I'm not planning on it, but I am going to do everything that I can to capture evidence. I want to capture evidence. And if I don't, then I will debunk every single thing that's there. So I tell you what. You're scared to get, yeah. We'll see. We'll see. And we're going to be going. So I'll be going also live a lot on TikTok. Unfortunately, I won't be able to go live all the time on all the other social media platforms because I'll need phenomenal, obviously, Wi-Fi. And you can't really do that, regrettably, when you're traveling. You just get the Wi-Fi that you get. But I have been told that the Wi-Fi on the Queen Mary is pretty amazing. Well, thank you there. Hi. I think it was hi. Yeah. All right. Let's get into our presentation because our presentation is very cool. One that a lot of people don't know about. And as I read a little bit more about this, I thought this is really interesting. Now, if we have enough time, there are several other topics that I'm very interested in talking about, perhaps secret societies. I've updated that information, and eventually I'm going to be talking about the Devil's Bible. That's a very, very interesting story. If you don't know about it, you'll know when I tell you. So I don't think there is a chapel. I wish that there was, but I don't think there is. I'm not for sure. All right, guys, let's get into the presentation. Tonight we're talking about the blood moon curse. The blood moon curse. The ominous superstition and its dark history. There are many cultures who saw that the blood moon was legitimate, a true legitimate fear, an omen, if you will. And what people don't know is that on March the 3rd, 2026, that will be the next total lunar eclipse. That's called the blood moon, otherwise known as the blood moon. Now, it will be, by the way, in September 2025, it is visible from Europe, Africa, Asia, Australia, but it will not be visible in the Americas. So if you are interested, and if you're in Europe, September the 7th, 2025, a total lunar eclipse or blood moon It'll be available. You'll be able to see it in Europe, Africa, Asia, and Australia. In the United States, March 3rd, 2026. All right, sit back, relax, and leave the drive-in to us. Tonight, we're going to talk about the chilling exploration, thank you, of the blood moon curse. It's a superstition that has haunted humanity for centuries. And as we delve into the dark history and ominous beliefs surrounding the blood moon, I ask that you prepare yourselves for tales of foreboding omens, supernatural warnings, and the eerie events that have actually unfolded under its crimson glow. There are people that will swear to you that the blood moon is a legitimate omen. I was able to speak to several people. There are several stories that I'm going to be sharing tonight, and you will never, ever be able to convince them otherwise that it's not an omen. They are convinced. See, the blood moon is not just a beautiful celestial event. It is steeped in deep fear and superstition. I see across cultures and even throughout all of history, the blood moon has been seen as a harbinger of doom, disaster, even death. So tonight we're going to uncover the terrifying stories and the beliefs that surround this phenomenon, revealing the darker side of what it means to witness a blood moon. So let's begin by understanding the blood moon itself. So a blood moon occurs during a total lunar eclipse. That's when the Earth passes between the sun and the moon. And as the Earth casts its shadows on the moon, it takes a deep red color. And while this is a natural occurrence, the eerie sight has sparked fear and a lot of superstition for centuries. Yes, and many people consider this even an omen of the end times. Now, to be fair, the blood moon has occurred since the beginning of time. But imagine standing outside on a still night, the air thick with anticipation. The moon begins to darken, transforming it into a haunting shade of red. Now, this unsettling sight has been interpreted as a sign from the heavens. It's a warning that something sinister is on the horizon. The blood moon has been associated with various calamities, disasters, and even the end of the world. So throughout history, many cultures have viewed the blood moon as an omen, often linking it to catastrophic events. So let's explore some of these events. Okay? Yes, we do. I just mentioned that. We have one coming up in next year. Yep. So for those of you, next year. All right. First, the Babylonians. The Babylonians were among the first to record celestial events, and they believed that the lunar eclipses, particularly the blood moons, were a direct message from the gods. They interpreted these events as a warning of impending doom or disaster. For instance, they associated blood moons with the death of kings or the fall of empires. Now let's talk about the ancient Greeks. They also viewed the blood moon with trepidation, fear. They believed that a lunar eclipse was a sign of divine displeasure. Now that's true. That's true. And Nuncha said, and the Babylonians also worship big lizards. But let's talk about the Greeks, the ancient Greeks, the philosophers. So when they saw a blood moon, they thought that it was a sign that, it was divine displeasure. The philosopher Aristotle noted that a blood moon could signify calamity, and many feared that it foreshadowed the death of a prominent figure. And the Greeks often held rituals to appease the gods during such events. The Chinese, what I love about this is when you learn about different cultures in different times, how many of them have almost the same belief when it comes to the blood moon. In ancient China, lunar eclipses, the blood moon, that was seen as a dire omen for the emperor. And the Chinese believed that the moon represented the emperor's health and well-being. A blood moon was thought to signal illness or misfortune for the ruler. often leading to rituals aimed to restoring balance and averting disaster. Now, even the Native American tribes, many Native American tribes viewed the blood moon as a time of change. Some believed it was a time when the veil between the living and the dead was thinnest, allowing spirits to cross over. And the eerie glow of the blood moon was thought to attract malevolent spirits, and rituals were performed to protect against these entities. Even Europe, in medieval Europe, the blood moon was often associated with witchcraft and dark magic. So people believed that witches would gather under the blood moon to perform their rituals, invoking curses and dark forces. You got to understand, when you're in the medieval Europe, knowledge of, total lunar eclipse, it was limited. And at the same time, they truly believed in witchcraft. They absolutely believed in demons and possession. And they believed that there were women out running on warlocks, running out in the woods, putting curses upon people. So this was a legitimate fear for many people in medieval Europe, not only Europe, but all across many different cultures and many time and generations. So when you put yourself in that position in medieval Europe and you see a blood moon, you were terrified because you knew that witches were in the woods practicing terrible curses. See, the sight of a blood moon was thought to bring misfortune, illness, and even death. So villagers during a blood moon would often stay indoors. They would not go outside. They closed the doors, closed the shutters. Everything was locked tight, fearing that the supernatural beings that might roam the night. If you really think about that and try to put yourself in their position, that would be terrifying. Imagine you're living out in the village. They didn't have street lights. It was very dark outside, so you could see all the stars. And then the moon turns red, completely red. That would be terrifying for many people who didn't have the knowledge that we do now about lunar eclipses. So much so that it would frighten them that no one would go outside at night. Could you imagine even being a child at this time, thinking that you're hearing monsters or growling outside, knowing that there's some evil creature, scouring the area? I think that would be kind of interesting existence when you put yourself in their position. So as we delve deeper into the ominous nature of the blood moon, let's examine some catastrophic events that have actually coincided with this celestial phenomenon, reinforcing the belief in its curse, because I think that's important. So let's talk about historical events that's linked to the blue moon. First, the fall of Jerusalem in 70 AD. What many people don't know is a blood moon occurred shortly before the destruction of the Second Temple in Jerusalem. I always say blue moon, the blood moon. So the blood moon occurred shortly before the destruction of the Second Temple in Jerusalem. Many interpreted this event as a divine warning of the impending catastrophe. Tongue-tied. The sight of the blood moon was seen as a harbinger of the bloodshed and the destruction that would soon follow after, which did happen. Also, in 541 and 542 AD, the plague of Justinian. So the first pandemic of the bubonic plague, known as the plague of Justinian, it coincided with a series of blood moons. So people believe that the blood moon signified the wrath of God. And the ensuing plague was seen as a direct consequence of God's judgment. This plague was horrible. Many, many people lost their lives. And that coincided with the blood moon. Also, interestingly enough, World War I and World War II, both world wars saw blood moons occurring around the time of significant battles and losses. See, the blood moon became a symbol of bloodshed and turmoil of war. Many believed that these celestial events foretold the violence and destruction that would follow. Numerous natural disasters, including earthquakes, tsunamis, have been reported to coincide with blood moons. For instance, the 2011 Japan, and many people don't know this, in 2011, Japan had an earthquake and a tsunami that occurred shortly after a blood moon, leading to speculation about a connection. Thank you. See, the blood moon was seen as a sign of nature's fury, a warning of the chaos to come. Now, the belief in the blood moon, the curse, that extends beyond historical events. It also, what people don't know, it has profound psychological impact on individuals and communities. Hello. So the anticipation of disaster during a blood moon can lead to heightened anxiety and fear. People may perceive normal events as ominous, creating even a self-fulfilling prophecy. The collective fear surrounding the blood moon can amplify these emotions, which could lead to panic and even irrational behavior. Like, for example, in medieval Europe, locking yourself in your home and not allowing any family member to go out. You also have to remember, we're not talking about indoor plumbing. So in medieval Europe, well, many had outhouses. So when you had a blood moon, you didn't go outside. And the shared belief in the blood moon curse can create a collective consciousness that heightens fear. See, when communities gather to witness a blood moon, the shared anticipation can lead to heightened emotions and reactions. Stories of doom and disaster circulate, feeding, obviously, into the belief that the blood moon is indeed cursed. So as we move into the modern era, the blood moon continues to evoke fear and superstition in a lot of people. And so let's explore how contemporary beliefs shape our understanding. So many people still hold superstition beliefs regarding the blood moon, associating with a bad luck and illness, misfortune. Rituals and practices such as cleansing or protection spells are sometimes performed to ward off perceived negative effects. And the blood moon remains a topic of intrigue and fear, often discussed in hushed tones. Also, the portrayal of blood moons in media, particularly in horror films and documentaries, has contributed to the fear surrounding them. Sensationalized accounts of disasters linked to blood moons further obviously perpetuate the cursed narrative. See, the blood moon has become a symbol of fear, a reminder of the unknown. You know, we are left, I think, with a chilling understanding of how this celestial event has been intertwined with human history and fear and superstition. The blood moon serves as a powerful symbol, evoking both awe and fear in many people. And whether one views the blood moon as a harbinger of doom or a chance for reflection, it undeniably captivates our imagination and stirs our emotions. So as we look to the skies in the next blood moon, let's remember the stories and beliefs that have shaped our understanding. Now let's talk about some of the stories, because some of these stories are absolutely chilling, bone chilling. These are historical stories that have been passed down from generation to generation. And when you hear some of these, you're going to be shocked. All right. So let's go into the first story. For as long as people have looked up at the night sky, there have been stories about the moon. Some have told of benevolent guardian watching over the earth like a silent, pale sentinel. Others whispered that it was an eye that was watching back. But the blood moon, now that was never the time for comfort. A blood moon is not just a poetic name for a lunar eclipse. It is the moment when the earth itself casts a shadow on the moon's face, smothering its silver glow until it burns a deep, unnatural red. Now, science will tell you it's a trick of the light, but ancient people knew better. See, when the moon bleeds, the old superstitions say it is feeding. This is what many people historically believed. Feeding on our fears, feeding on our secrets. And if you're careless enough to reach out to it, it might just reach back. Many cultures believe. Now, in every corner of the world, the blood moon has been seen as an omen, as I mentioned. As I said, the Mesopotamians firmly believed it foretold the death of a king. Even in the Incas, it meant a jaguar spirit was attacking the moon, as if it won, it would come for humanity next. And in medieval Europe, as I told you, they would bolt their doors. They would never speak names out loud, ever. Because they believed that the moon would carry those names to the dead. And yet there were always those who saw the blood moon not as a warning, but as an opportunity. Because in hidden forest, in stone circles, half swallowed by moths, in basements lit only by tallow candles, occultists and witches would wait for the crimson light. They believed it was a doorway, the perfect time to speak across the thin line between this world and the next. Now, some sought knowledge, and some sought power. Some only wanted to see a lost loved one again. But the blood moon is not a tame thing. It's not a tool to be bent to human will. It's a predator, many people believe. Patient, silent, very, very old. And when you call to it, it listens and has always taken its payment. For those of you who are just joining us, I'm Bishop Long, and we're talking about the blood moon curse, superstition. Is it true? Is it real? Every culture that dared to work magic under the blood moon recorded consequences. Some wrote of voices in the dark, speaking in languages no living mouth could form. Other cultures told of figures that walked in circles around the ritual fire. Figures with no face, only a smooth expanse of skin where eyes and mouth should be. Well, thank you, Julia. Now, those who survived to tell their stories never went near a blood moon again. And those who didn't are still with us. And if you stand under the red light long enough, there are many cultures say that you might feel the dead behind you, breathing and waiting. So here's a story. By the autumn of 1871, the people of Black Hollow were living on a knife's edge of despair. What happened is the town clung to a steep ridge in the Appalachian Mountains. That was a place so isolated, it wasn't even marked on most maps. The winters were long. The soil was difficult to work with, and when sickness came, there was nowhere to run. So that year, the fever arrived with the cold winds. It struck without reason. Young, old, strong, weak. It didn't matter, thank you. And one week, a child was laughing in the fields, having a great time. The next, he was pale, still asleep under a wool blanket. And by October, the churchyard was full. The surviving families had begun to speak in low voices, not of healing, but of lasting through the winter at all. And then came Mary Whitcomb. So Mary was not born in Black Hollow. She had arrived just 2 years before, with a husband already coughing his life away from consumption. And by the time he was buried, she had become something of a curiosity. She spoke to herself when she walked in the woods. She left jars of honey and salt at the crossroads. And on nights when the moon was full, she would sit at her window with a candle burning, as if waiting for someone to arrive. So when the fever claimed her last living relative, a younger sister, Mary stopped going to church entirely. Instead, she began spending long hours in her attic, where a single trunk held a book bound in something that was not leather. Not quite. Its pages were brittle, the ink faded, but the drawings were disturbingly fresh. Circles marked with strange symbols, figures standing around fires, their faces twisted into something between a scream and a smile. And above them all, a red moon. Thank you for the gifts. Now, she told the people of Black Hollow that she had found a cure, a way to turn away death itself. But it would require 13 souls to stand in a circle beneath the blood moon. The circle had to be drawn in salt and in blood, each person's blood spilled into the mixture. And the words that she would give them must be spoken without hesitation. Now, most townsfolk would have laughed. But these were not most townsfolk. They were desperate. And desperation listens. So October the 12th, 1871, 13 people gathered in a clearing at the edge of the forest. The moon above was already bleeding into shadow, its pale face darkened into rust. And they worked by lantern and cutting their palms with some rusted blade, watching their blood mingle with the salt until the circle looked almost alive. The air was sharp with the smell of iron, and the wind had died completely. Now, even the trees seemed to lean away from the clearing as though they knew that something was coming. So when Mary told them to begin, their voices trembled. And the words that she had given them were harsh and angular, like they had been carved from stone. And they carried strangely into the still air, too far, as though the forest itself was repeating them back. And then it happened. They say that the ground beneath their feet shifted, not shaking like an earthquake, but rising and falling like something enormous was breathing just under the soil. And the lantern flames began to stretch sideways, bending towards the center of the circle. Some people reported that a coldness swept through the clearing. Thank you. Sharper than a winter air. Sharp enough to make their teeth ache, they said. And someone, no one could later remember who, dropped their lantern. The flame was taken out instantly, and they were in darkness. From the center of the circle came the first sound. It was not a voice, not exactly. It was a hum, low and steady. But it wasn't coming from one place. It was coming from inside them, rattling their ribs, shaking their teeth, making their vision pulse in time with the sound. And in that moment, every one of them knew the truth. They had not been calling for help. They had been calling something home. So they could not see it, not at first, only feel it. And the air in the circle seemed thicker, heavier, as though they were breathing something wet. And some swore later that the darkness itself had almost gained weight, that it pressed against their skin and filled their mouths when they tried to speak. And the humming moved slowly and deliberately. And one moment, it was in front of them, the next behind. Then to the side, so close they could feel it brushing against their sleeves. And when they turned their heads, there was only more black, and then a sound. Boots on frozen ground. That's what they said it sounded like. But the steps were too far apart, farther than any man's legs could stretch. So they moved around the circle in a slow, perfect pattern. And every time the thing came near, the lantern light what little was left, seemed to kind of bow away from it, bending like grass and wind. The air smelt faintly of rot and damp stone. Joseph Keats, he was one of the 13. He would later say that he tried to close his eyes, but he couldn't. Something inside his head was forcing them to open, forcing him to see, but there was nothing there. Only that shifting black, the suggestion movement, and then they saw it. A shape, tall, distorted. It was like a man had been pulled apart and put back together by someone who did not understand how bones were meant to fit together. Its shoulders were too high, its neck too long, its limbs bent in ways that shouldn't been. And the only light in the clearing, pale red from the half-eclipsed moon, seemed to cling to it, outlining its edges but never showing its face. And then it looked at them. And where its eyes should have been were holes. Not sockets, not wounds, just absence. A dark pent that went on and on and on, far deeper than a human skull could hold. And it smiled. Smiled, they said, too wide, a mouth that stretched almost to where its ears should have been. They saw teeth, too many teeth, rows of them, and they were not human. No one moved, not because they didn't want to, but because something invisible weight, as they described it, pinned their bodies in place. Their chests rose and fell rapidly, but their feet stayed rooted in the ground. So the thing moved closer to the edge of the circle. It leaned forward, and the humming stopped. The silence was worse. The creature tilted its head first to one side, then the other, studying them like animals in a pen. It sniffed long, wet inhalations that seemed to pull the air from their lungs, they said, and then it began to hum again. And the sound went through them like a current, vibrating in their bones, crawling up their spines. They believed it was inside their heads, behind their eyes. Joseph Keats felt his teeth ache so sharply that he thought that they might crack. Another man began to cry, but no tears came. And Mary Whitcomb, she began to smile. So no one could move. Their muscles were locked tight. Their breath shallow at first. The cold in the clearing was so deep now that it felt like it had seeped into their bones, freezing them from the inside out. The shape moved among them, and one long step at a time, circling. It never touched them, but the air shifted with its passing, just enough to make the skin on the arms and the neck, prickle. And every time it passed, the humming in their heads grew louder, like a wasp nest under the skull. And it stopped in front of Mary Whitcomb. The others could see her eyes fixed on it, wide and shining in the dim red light. Her lips were moving. And at first they thought she was praying, but then they realized she was mouthing the hum, repeating the sound like a child learning a song. The thing leaned down until its missing face was inches from hers, and the air around them bent like heat on a summer road, but colder and sharper. Yeah. And then they said she was gone. No pulling, no dragging, no cry. One moment, Mary Whitcomb was standing in the circle, her hands at her sides. The next, the space that she had occupied was empty. So the others stared at the spot, their frozen minds trying to understand what they'd seen. And it was though as she had been erased, not taken away, but removed entirely. The shape then straightened, and for a moment, the red light caught the edge of its teeth again, and it hummed once more, brief, satisfied. It began to fade. Not stepping away, not vanishing in a blink, but thinning like smoke in the wind. And at that moment, the paralysis broke. One man fell to his knees, retching. Another staggered out of the circle, sobbing. They all ran, stumbling and tripping through the frost and, the dead leaves. And the trees of Black Hollow swallowed them. So when they reached the town, they had actually found the doors of every home standing open, not a single light burning. And inside the rooms were empty chairs tipped over, dishes shattered, fires in the hearth burned down to nothing but cold ash. The sick beds were all vacant. The children were gone. And by the next morning, Black Hollow was silent. And within a week, every surviving soul had fled, leaving the ridge of the forest. And now, a century and a half later, hunters still say that on blue moon nights, if you wander too close to the clearing, you can hear humming in the stillness. And if you follow it, well, then you'll have to tell us what happens. The next story, this is the monastery in the Pyrenees. 1624, by the way, this happened. So high in the snow-bitten peaks of the Pyrenees, there once stood a monastery. The locals actually called El Silencio. Well, its true name is long forgotten. Obviously, they just named it El Silencio. The people of the surrounding valleys rarely spoke at all of it. And not because it was feared, but because they could not recall ever hearing laughter from its walls. Only the sound of bells and silence. So in the winter of 1624, this monastery, El Silencio, housed just 17 brothers. They lived by the strictest orders. No meat, no wine, no idle talk. Now, there was something in their keeping, something the church had quietly forbidden them to show to the outsiders. It was a disc, silver, perfectly round, no wider than a man's palm, and in the surface shimmered strangely, even in darkness, as though catching light from a hidden source. Now, it was said to be made from a moon metal, if you will, fallen from the sky long before their father's father had been born. So in the winter, Brother Inigo, one of the youngest monks, claimed he had been visited by a vision. And he had said, actually, a voice, neither male or female, had whispered in his dreams. And he said that the whisper said, place the moon metal upon the altar at the hour of midnight, and the Virgin will come to bless your house, the Virgin Mary. And this is a true story. What's interesting about these are true stories. Now, do we know they happened for a fact? Well, we don't know, but these have been passed down from generations. For those of you just joining again, I'm Bishop Long. We're talking about the blood moon curse, historical events that have occurred during the blood moon. Now, some were skeptical with the brother. Others were quietly eager. The monastery had been struggling. Grain stores spoiled by damp and wolves prowling dangerously close to the walls. A blessing could only help. So on the night of the blood moon, the chapel was lit only by a single row of candles, their flames trembling in the icy air. The silver disc was placed on the altar, gleaming faintly in the crimson light, pouring through the high window. And at first, nothing stirred. Then, thank you guys for the gifts, a shadow appeared at the far end of the nave. It was a figure in white robes, walking slowly up the center aisle. So its hood was drawn low, and its hands were folded as though in prayer. And the brothers bowed their heads, believing that they were in the presence of something holy. And as the figure passed each candle, the flame did not flicker. They said it kind of bent, straining towards the robe. And then the air grew dense, hard to draw into the lungs, they said. And Brother Mateo murmured a prayer to the Virgin, but the words twisted in his mouth, coming out in a language no man in the monastery knew. And another brother began to laugh, like a choking laugh that sounded more like sobbing. The figure reached the altar and it stopped. Its face was not human. It was the moon itself. They say a perfect sphere of pale. That's all it was. It looked like a pale round circle. Cratered stone where the cheeks and eyes and mouth should have been. And from the cracks in its surface came whispers, soft at first, then growing louder, voices the brothers knew. And it started, and it said, this is what they said. They said, dear fathers, mothers, brothers, lovers. And they were calling their names, begging them to step forward. And four of the monks rose without hesitation. And they walked to the figure as though drawn on strings, their eyes wide and unblinking. And when they reached it, they each placed their hands against this face. And then they passed out. Completely passed out. Needless to say, the rest fled the chapel. And by dawn, the monastery was in flames. And the disk of the moon medal was never found. The next blood moon story, which is quite interesting. And it would be easy to believe these stories belong to the past. The Block Hollow, the monastery, the Pyrenees are only a grim little chapters in forgotten history. But the blood moon does not care about centuries, doesn't fade with time. Listen to this. This happened in January of 1996. A group of amateur ghost hunters set out in the Sonoran Desert, hoping to catch footage of the total lunar eclipse. They brought cameras, EMF meters, a battered cassette recorder for audio. Well, the first hour of tape is uneventful. Wind over the sand, the crunch of boots, occasional burst of laughter. Then at 12:13 a.m., the wind stops. Desert goes silent. Okay, check my monitor there. And the sound begins. Again, it's a low hum. Low and steady, but layered. And many voices humming at slightly different pitches. And one of the investigators whispers, do you hear that? And another replies, yeah, but it's inside my head. And then at 12:15, the tape cuts out. What was interesting is their truck was found 2 days later. The keys still in the ignition, driver's side door hanging open. And the men, because there were three men, it was as if someone had tried to get into their truck, but the men had been completely like in a time vessel, they described it. They heard this humming. It was a blood moon, and all of them heard this humming. And the next thing, they woke up the next morning, had no memory of what happened, none. And when of course, 2 days later, complete and total time lapse. And they still, even to this day, don't know what happened. Now, in February 2019, total lost time. This is in Norway. This event happened in February 2019. A woman named Anja Brinde. She was alone in her apartment during the blood moon. She noticed a shape in her living room, a tall, narrow, impossible mistake for a shadow. Her curtains are closed, and security footage shows her walking to the window and standing there for 2 hours. Her breathing was slow, her face slack, her eyes fixed on something outside. And then at 3:17 a.m., she suddenly turns away and just sits down. The next morning, she has no memory of the event. But when she plays back the footage, she swears she hears a faint humming on the audio track. Now, researchers who've studied these encounters have noticed something. Every verified blood moon incident, everyone tied to either disappearances or strange behavior or the hum, occurs on a repeated schedule. 87 years apart, It's not tied to astronomy. It's not tied to location. It is tied to something else, something older than maps and calendars. And that is the blood moon. If the wind stops, if the night goes still, and if you hear it, they say, do not listen to the hum. Now, it's kind of crazy if you think about this. A lot of people are talking about this hum that occurs during the blood moon. Yeah, we're talking about the blood moon, when the moon goes completely red. And again, for those who are joining us, I'm Bishop Long, and we are now talking about the blood moon curse. So there's a reason the old stories said that, you should never speak of the blood moon's curse after dark. They believed that recounting it, even in a whisper, was like opening a door. And when that door opens, something looks back. If you feel the air change, if your skin prickles and your breath feels, too loud in the silence, then you'll know it's close. And once it's close, there's no outrunning it. They say there's not in the city, not in the woods, not in your own bed. Some say the only way to survive is to just try to drown the noise out. Fill your space with sound, chant, pray, listen to music until the moonlight itself fades away. Everyone says don't let the hum get inside your head, because once it does, you'll start to hum along. And when you do, then you're already there, as the blood moon will rise again. Now, let's talk about this one. I've actually talked to this family. This is a very interesting. At first, when I heard this, I thought this is kind of interesting. The Johnson family had always been fascinated by a lunar cycle, but they had never paid much attention, to the warnings surrounding the blood moon. Well, on the night of the celestial event, they gathered in their living room, excited to witness the phenomenon. And as the moon turned a deep crimson, they said an unsettling chill filled the air. Yeah, Havana, it's interesting. It seems like we don't know as far as what the connection is. But listen to this story. And I spoke to this family. Well, that night, they said that strange occurrences began. It started with whispers, soft, unintelligible murmurs that seemed to echo through the halls. And at first, they brushed it off as the wind. But as the hours passed, the whispers grew louder, more distinct. The family members all said that they heard, "Get out, leave." And as the family tried to sleep, the whispers intensified, now accompanied by the sound of footsteps pacing outside the bedroom doors. The children, all huddled under their blankets, eyes wide with fear, obviously. The parents tried to reassure them, but when they looked at each other, they could see the fear reflected in their eyes. Suddenly, the power went out, plunging the complete house into total darkness. And the whispers turned into frantic cries, begging for help. And the family, now terrified, they left the house. And as they opened the front doors, they were met by a thick fog that seemed to swirl around them, obscuring their vision. The whispers, then they said, transformed into screams, echoing through the night. And they ran into their neighbor's house, but when they reached it, no one was there. The Johnsons returned home that night, and obviously when they did, the house stood silent. The whispers were gone, and this occurred on a blood moon. And they left, and they went to a hotel that evening. This, my friends, was one of the cases that I worked. And I captured some pretty intense EVPs of screaming, where you clearly hear someone scream. It almost sounds like there's a scream outside, and you can hear it from inside of the house. This absolutely required the minor rite of exorcism. The issue is they don't really know what happened or what caused it. They just simply don't know. But I do know that there was something, obviously, demonic. And now, I don't know. We never found out if maybe one of the kids did something like playing with a Ouija board or something they should not have done. We simply don't know. Because none of them admitted to it. I think perhaps maybe if they did, they didn't want to get in trouble. But there was absolutely, without question, something demonic was there. And I don't know as far as the blood moon and how that participated with this demonic infestation, but it was in fact it was around the blood moon. Okay, the next one, the Ramirez family had always celebrated the blood moon with a backyard barbecue, a tradition that always brought them together. And this year, however, something felt different. And as the moon rose, casting an eerie red glow over their yard, their dog Max began to act strangely. Because they said that he would just bark at nothing and just growling at the shadows. Well, later that night, as they gathered around the fire pit, Max suddenly bolted into the woods behind their house. The family called for him. He didn't return. So concerned, they decided to do a search for him. They had flashlights and everything you need. The woods were thick. They said that it was like the shadows were dancing around them. And after searching for what felt like hours, they finally heard a whimper. And following the sound, they found Max standing at the edge of a clearing, just staring into the darkness. But they said something was off. He was fixated on a shadowy figure that seemed to like flicker in and out of existence under the blood moon. The family called for Max, but he would not move. He was completely paralyzed with fear. And they said that this shadow person lunged toward them. And the family screamed, and they obviously ran back to their house. They clearly saw this shadow person. And when they reached the safety of their home, they realized that Max was obviously not behind them. So they searched the house. They called for him. There was no sign of the beloved pet. But the next morning, they did find his collar lying in the backyard. But Max was never seen again. Now, what was interesting is how this collar came off of Max. They could not understand. They did not understand. And how it was just thrown in the backyard. So this actually was another family that I went to, and I blessed their home. I didn't really capture a whole lot of activity in the home. I captured some EVPs in the wooded area. But there was clearly something there. So I performed the minor rite of exorcism. And even to this day, they have no idea where Max went. No clue. All right, everybody. Again, welcome. I appreciate you all being here. For those of you who are new, I have a lot of chat rooms open. And so just please understand that if you're asking questions, many times I'll try to do my best to get to them. But sometimes I am unable. Yes, Bino. Okay, the Mitchell family. I want to tell you about this case. They were excited to witness the blood moon from their home. They bought a new home. It was a charming house that had seen better days. This wasn't, when I say a new home, it wasn't a brand new built up home. It was an old house, but it needed some help. And so as the moon rose, they gathered all together outside and admiring the view. But as the moon turned red, they said that the atmosphere shifted. Now, the youngest daughter, her name was Lily, and she was the first to notice something strange. She stood in front of the mirror in the hallway, and her reflection, she said, kind of was not normal. The families described it as distorted. Because I don't know how much of this, because I couldn't document this, but they said it almost seemed like it was smiling back at her, even when she wasn't smiling. Now, the families dismissed it at first, thinking that it was either a trick of the light or perhaps maybe a warped mirror. And that night, as they prepared for bed, Lily's parents heard her whispering. And when they entered her room, they found her sitting on the floor staring at the mirror. And she told her mom and dad, she said, she's in there. And she told she said, her voice was trembling, and she said, but she wants to come out. The parents exchanged worried glances, but they reassured her that it was just a reflection. Well, that following night, as the blood moon reached its peak, a lot of strange occurrences escalated. The families told me that they heard soft tapping sounds coming from the mirror. And when they looked closer, they swear they saw a black shadow that seemed like it was almost behind the glass, pressing against the glass, trying to break it. The parents tried to cover the mirror, but it felt as if the figure was pulling them toward it. And so, in obviously fear, they put a towel over the mirror, but the tapping continued. And the family fled to the living room, but then the tapping started happening in the walls. And it started what they described as scratching. And they spent the night huddled together in the living room. And when the sun rose, the sound stopped. The fear was still there. And they contacted me. And I went to this family's house. I have the mirror. I won't show this mirror online because the EVPs that we captured in this particular case was very violent. And there's no question in my mind that this case was demonic. None. And so this is a mirror that I won't show online. So when I show you some of my haunted items that I've collected through the years, I have a storage facility, but I'm not going to show this. Obviously, I think it would be irresponsible. I've blessed the mirror, and I really don't even take the mirror to paranormal conferences because this was in my opinion, this was a case where even the skeptics cannot deny that demons exist. Okay. Yeah, we performed the minor rite of exorcism. The family was able to, thank you. Thank you, Elizabeth. And so the families say they're good to go. They haven't had any issues since. The next family I want to talk about is the Thompson family. They had a tradition of gathering for family dinners. And in one particular night, there was a blood moon. And so this year they decided to host a grand feast in their ancestral home. There's a big, beautiful estate. Actually, it used to be a slave state, if you will, estate. Obviously has a lot of what? Yes, I do, Himana. And so this was a plantation. And so as the moon began to rise, a sense of unease settled over the family because they were all outside and they were having a great time. But when the blood moon came in, they, because their festivities even went well into the dark. But during dinner, the eldest member of the family, Edna, began to tell stories of their ancestors. And she spoke of a curse that had been placed on their family generations long ago. And I guess because, the blood moon was there, she thought it was an opportunity to scare some people. And she began to warn them about the blood moon's power. Well, the family thought, this is our Grandma Edna. So the family just laughed it off. They saying, it's just superstition. But as the night wore on, the atmosphere grew tense. And as the blood moon reached its peak, strange things began to happen. The lights flickered in the home. The temperatures in the room completely dropped, and also outside. And suddenly, the family say that the portraits of the walls began to sway back and forth like a breeze had just swept through the room, even though all the windows were closed. And the family, of course, exchanged nervous glances, but Edna insisted they just continue on with their dinner and don't worry about that. Well, then one by one, each family member began to feel an overwhelming sense of dread. And they started to hear whispers echoing in the halls and voices calling their names and warnings of impending doom. Now the whispers grew louder, and the family members began to argue. There was accusations flying as fear took hold, and in the chaos, Edna collapsed, her eyes wide with terror. The family rushed to her side, but she whispered, "The curse, it's real." And the lights then went out completely, plunging them into darkness. And when they flicked on their phones for light, all the family portraits, every single one of them, had fallen. And so, of course, glass was shattered. And they took Edna to the hospital. And they said that Edna just had an episode. Her blood or her sugar levels or something of this nature just caused her to pass out. Thank you, Sheena. But I went to this family contacted me and asked if I would be willing to go and perform a blessing, because they were terrified. They never seen this before. They've never experienced this before. I did. There were weird noises that came from outside of the home that I captured, and there absolutely was a change in temperature within the house. So I asked them to turn the air conditioning off, because I was there during the fall and it really wasn't that hot. So it was comfortable. So I said, let's turn the air conditioning off, because I wanted to see if there was any type of change in the room temperature, because that was one of the things that they had said that happened. And in one particular room, it was a 15-degree temperature change. So that's pretty remarkable. And what I mean by that is we always do what's called baseline readings. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We do baseline readings before we investigate. So we tell everybody to turn off all the air conditioning unit. So it was off for a good hour or so. So then we take a baseline reading, say, okay, this room registers, 70 degrees. This room registers 65 degrees. So we register everywhere, the walls, the ceiling, the floor, and we kind of measure all of it. That way we have a baseline before we begin the minor rite of exorcism. So we began the minor rite of exorcism, and we heard disembodied voices, clearly heard it from outside. No one was outside. It was more like a moaning sound than anything. And that changed. That when we went into one of the rooms, it was a 15-degree temperature. And by the way, that was the grandmother lived with the family, and that was in Edna's room, and that was a 15-degree temperature drop. So that was a very interesting situation. But this all happened, by the way, during the blood moon. Now, I'm going to also talk a little bit about a couple more quick stories. Oh, yeah, they also can get hot, too. Yeah, during an exorcism, especially in an exorcism, or even the minor rite of exorcism, the minor rite of exorcism is basically you bless a home. You don't perform an exorcism on the home. That doesn't exist. You bless the home, and you perform an exorcism on the entity that has manifested in the home. So that's what you're doing. So there's no such thing as performing an exorcism on a house. That doesn't exist. You bless the house. And by blessing the house, then you force the entity to manifest. And then you perform the exorcism on it. That's different. The minor rite of exorcism is different than the solemn rite. The solemn rite is reserved for someone who is actually possessed. So this is a story that during a family reunion, we talked about the family reunion, the grandmother. There was a woman who found an old photograph of her grandfather during a blood moon. And intrigued, she researches his past and discovers that he had a history of dark dealings in the community. So as she dug a little deeper, strange coincidences began to occur. Thank you very much. She said that neighbors became hostile, and she began receiving anonymous threats. And then the blood moon brings to light her family's hidden past. forcing her to confront the darkness that still lingers. Another story that I found out about, a couple stops in a town to escape the city during a blood moon. They didn't want to be a part of that. Well, the townspeople, they're friendly, but they seem to have a really strange adherence to traditions that was tied to this type of event. So when the couple tries to leave, they found themselves blocked by downed trees, strange occurrences that made them feel watched. And they realized that the town has a history of isolating outsiders during the blood moon. And they had to navigate the town's secret basically to escape. This, by the way, this is partially, if you've seen the television show Fear. So Fear, it's very interesting. I don't want to give it away, but there always has something to do with a down tree. And you can't escape. And that Fear, the show, if you've not seen it, you might want to watch it. It's pretty intense. It's loosely based on that town. There's another story. A mother hears her daughter giggling and playing outside during a blood moon. And when she investigates, she finds her daughter talking to an imaginary friend who seems eerily knowledgeable about the family. So as the night progresses, the mother discovers that the friend is not actually a friend at all. So the daughter had been doing some things that she shouldn't have done. She was 12, and she had snuck in a Ouija board. And this was actually a case that I worked. And she snuck in a Ouija board. A friend gave it to her and said, "Oh yeah, you can carry in, bring people in, and they'll be your friends and that kind of thing." So she brought this in, and she played with this during a blood moon. And after that, she swears that she has a little friend. And the little friend, talks to her, and she talks to the friend. And the mother always comes into her room. She always came into her room, said, "Who are you talking to?" And the little daughter just, 12 years old, my friend, it's all good. It's cool. Well, I mean, at 12 years old, imaginary friends should be, dissipating at the age of 12. But her mom just said, okay, she's not going to question too much about it. But as it continued, the daughter came into her mom's room and said, "I don't like my friend anymore." And the mom asked her why. And she said, "Because my friend keeps saying that you don't like me anymore." And the mother said, what are you talking about? I don't like you anymore. You're my daughter." And she said, "Yeah, but my friend says that I shouldn't trust you anymore, and that you're actually, you don't like me, and that you'd rather get rid of me." I mean, it's the saying things of this. And so the mom walked into the daughter's room, and everything seemed normal, but she found the Ouija board. And needless to say, she was very, very upset. And she asked, who gave this to her? And she said, a friend of hers. And she said, "What else has this friend been saying?" She said, "The friend has been saying that I should go outside at night." "And where is this friend telling you to go?" "They lived out in the woods." "Thank you, Jim." "They live out kind of like in the woods, not too far." "Well, I should just go walking out in the woods at nighttime." And so they called me in, and I have the Ouija board. And so I performed the minor rite of exorcism, and I blessed the daughter. I captured a couple EVPs that were growls, and another EVP that I can't mention because I'll be banned on TikTok. But it was an aggressive one that was geared towards me to cause harm. And so that was an interesting EVP. Well, thank you very much. Thank you. So we captured a couple of EVPs during the minor rite of exorcism. So we've removed the Ouija board. I do have it. And then we performed the minor rite of exorcism. We blessed the mom and we blessed the daughter, and the activity stopped. But that all happened. It all happened with the blood moon. Again, I'm not implying that the blood moon is the cause of that, but I'm just saying that she started playing with the Ouija board during the blood moon. Thank you there, Jax. So there we go, friends. That is our fun-filled, exciting presentation on the red blood moon. Okay. Yeah, some of these cases are pretty interesting. Speaking Speaking of moons, thank you guys. Thank you. Yeah, stay away from Ouija boards. I don't care what anyone says to you. I don't care. They can sit there and tell you that there's nothing wrong with them. They're harmless. I'm telling you, they are incorrect. The people who say this, now some people I know they mean no harm, but I'm telling you, stay away from these boards. And no matter how many times I say this, and I get a lot of flack and people going online and trolling and saying nasty things. I don't care. Here's the problem. One, you don't know who you're communicating with. That's a big problem. And you can say, well, I surround myself with white light. Demons don't care about your white light because you can't have it both ways. You cannot surround yourself with white light and still give the invitation to speak to the spirit world in which you have no idea who you're speaking with. That's invitation. That's all it needs. But the biggest issue, and I've said this I don't know why people don't have been talked about this. For 25 years, I have said this. Do you not understand that the Ouija board is a form of possession? And people look at me when I say that. I'm like, well, you're placing your hand on the planchette. You give the spirit, whatever is there, the ability to control your hands to move the planchette. That's a form of possession. That is possession. You're allowing the spirit to control your muscular function. Why would you do this? Why? For 25 years, I've told people that is a form of possession. And you have no idea who you're communicating with. Now, speaking of the moons, T.K. Randall writes this. For those of you who don't know, well, thank you, Corinne. A black moon is coming. But what exactly is it? Well, astronomer Laura Nicole Dreisen takes a look at some of the different types of lunar events. So it says there's been a lot of buzz online about the August black moon happening later this week. And while you probably never heard of a blue moon before, you've probably heard of that. This might be the first time you've encountered its ominous sounding counterpart. You're not alone. In fact, neither blue moon nor black moon are astronomical terms. They describe the moments when the lunar calendar, our calendar year, fall out of alignment. So what is a black moon? Well, the current definition has nothing to do with the actual color of the moon. Let's start by defining some key terms. The moon is full when its whole face or disk is illuminated by the sun. Thank you very much. We typically get treated to a nice, bright, full moon at night when the sun and the moon are opposite each other and with Earth in between. A new moon is where none of the moon's face is illuminated and the far side is illuminated instead. Now, this happens when the moon is up during the day because the far side of the moon is illuminated when the moon is in between Earth and the sun. A lunar cycle, the time it takes for the moon to go from new to full to new again, approximately 29.5 days. So most years, there are 12 full moons and 12 new moons. And by the 29-day cycle, doesn't fit perfectly in the calendar year. So every now and then, there are 13 full or new moons in a calendar year. Okay. The blue moon and the black moon. A blue moon is when we get a 13th full moon in one calendar year. Conversely, a black moon is when we get a 13th new moon in one calendar year. Because these terms are entirely colloquial, there are a couple of definitions used for these extra moons. And one is based on seasons, and the other is based on simple calendar month. So I'm not going to go on over this. The next, the black moon this month is a seasonal black moon, and it's happening on August the 23rd. And the next calendar month black moon will happen on August 31st, 2027. So if you want to see the next black moon, it's happening tomorrow. which is interesting because there won't be any light from the moon. And so if you don't have light pollution, you'll be able to see the stars beautifully. Now, the blue moon, by the way, the next seasonal blue moon will be on May 20th, 2027. And the next calendar month blue moon for us will be on May 31st, 2026. So you might want to look up in the sky, and you won't be able to see it. But who knows? Maybe you'll be able to see the moon in its sky, and it will be black. Okay, let's talk about this one because I'm telling you, I don't care. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Yes, Sandy, they'll be saved on my social media platforms. Guys, a mystery as potential alien visitor seems to be emitting its own light. All right, so now we're escalating this, aren't we? TK Randall writes this. Avi Loeb maintains that this latest revelation adds credence to the idea that the object is an extraterrestrial vehicle. All right. Anyway, the mysterious cosmic interloper was first revealed on July 1st following its discovery by the Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System, a robotic astronomical survey which uses multiple telescopes to scan the night sky for a small near-Earth object, estimated to be 12 miles across. The object is heading toward the inner solar system at 152,000 miles per hour. Now, while many scientists believe that the 3-1 Atlas is likely to be a comet, that's what I predicted. Remember, I predicted that, everybody. Remember, I said this. For those of you who follow me, I said this when this first came out. I said, I told you, it's a comet. Anyway, others, such as Harvard professor Avi Loeb, maintain that it could in fact be under intelligent extraterrestrial control. Thank you, Cindy. Anyway, now new evidence has suggested that the object, whatever it is actually emitting its own light. And this, according to Loeb, could mean that it is in fact a lot smaller than previously thought, perhaps as little as 100 meters across. Anyway, the Harvard astronomer believes that this adds further credence to the idea that it is artificially constructed object, perhaps an extraterrestrial vehicle with a nuclear core. Quote, a natural nuclear source could be a rare fragment from the core of a nearby supernova that is richly in radioactive material, Loeb wrote. AKA, it's a comet. See, that very fancy statement that he just said, a natural. It's always got a CYA, you know what I mean? A natural nuclear source could be a rare fragment from the core of a nearby supernova that is rich in radioactive material. That great big huge $25 Harvard astronomer word, it's a comet. That's what it means. You don't have to sound fancy dancy. You don't have to use the $20 football words, as Miss Wilma says. It's a comet. Anyway, he says, this possibly is highly unlikely given the scarce reservoir of radioactive elements in interstellar space. Alternatively, the 3-1 Atlas could be a spacecraft, he says, powered by nuclear energy, and the dust emitted from its frontal surface might be from dirt that accumulated on its surface during its interstellar travel. Yes, because we know there's so much dirt in space. This cannot be ruled out, but requires better evidence to be visible. How much are people paying to go to Harvard for this astronomer, who is a Harvard astronomer? I love the fact that it's always interesting when they say something so insane, and then they always have something to fall back on. And the fall back on is, well, this could be a natural nuclear source, could be a rare fragment from the core of a nearby supernova. It's richly in blah, 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 blah. It's a comet. It's not an extraterrestrial vehicle. I'm telling you guys now, it is not. So for those of you who believe that ET is in this little thing, I'm telling you now, you're not going to see ET. You're not going to see a UFO. It's a comet. And the dust particles that you see, Avi, which you're not telling people, is that as the comet gets closer into our solar system, obviously the sun rays, even as far as it is, it's still going to have heat particles. The heat particles that melt, obviously, or that interact with the comet, you're going to have light. You will clearly see light with this, and you'll see the dust that's coming from it. The dust that's coming from it is not dust, it's ice particles that are actually melting as it enters our solar system. Duh. That's it. That's it. Sorry to burst your bubble. But I tell you, you watch as it gets closer and it gets closer and it gets closer. Oh, well, like I said, it could be a natural. Oh, shut up. Anyway, he realizes that he's gone too far into this ET crap. Now, look, I believe that there's alien life because this is my belief. Thank you very much. I believe it's quite possible. But I do not believe this is an extraterrestrial vehicle at all. And when it comes to pass, you will find out, thank you very much, that it's not ET. Sorry, it's comet. That's what. And guess what? You guys didn't even have to go to Harvard to get that education. You just got it for free right here on KGRADB radio. I mean, come on, folks. Now, for those of you just tuning in, I want to remind everybody, please do not forget, because there's a lot of people who've came in that were not here in the very beginning of the presentation when we did our announcements. Please go to our sponsor's website, KGRADB.com. KGRAD as in dog, B as in bicycle.com. Click on the shop link and click my name. Please buy all the products there. And here's why. And for those of you who are new, just indulge me for a moment. We are partnering with the MKS Kids Foundation. It is an orphanage that is in Uganda, and they are not government funded. They are self-funded. They help a lot of kids that are orphans. And I tell you what, it's a beautiful organization. So if you go to this KGRADB.com, click on the shop link and then my name, you're going to see a lot of St. Michael items. St. Benedict. St. Benedict is the patron saint of exorcists as well as police officers. And purchase as many products as you can. Because, number one, you're getting good products, but more importantly, 100% of what I would make, my cut from selling these products, 100% of that, as a community, we are donating that to the MKS Kids Foundation. And I think that's a beautiful thing. So we need to definitely do that. And then I'll get with Mr. Producer about the information that he was asking for the MKS kids. But I'm telling you, this is something that we can all do together, and we can make a difference in these kids' lives. And I encourage you, for those of you on TikTok, go to MKS Kids Foundation and go on their TikTok, and you see the kids, and you see. I mean, we're all making a difference, and it's important. So I think that's important to remind everybody. KGRADB radio right there. For those of you on all social media platforms, you guys know that on TikTok. Okay. So make sure you guys do that, and that would be wonderful. And thank you for doing that. And not only are you getting nice items, but you're also helping, kids, put some food in their bellies, and they also feed them, they house them, they educate them, they clothe them. So it's a beautiful organization. Okay, now this is a very fascinating story for those of you who don't know. Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Michelle. A viral footage of a strange object in the sky has left social media users scratching their heads. T.K. Randall writes this: little is actually known about the clip, other than it was filmed by a woman somewhere in France. It shows an object, which is some described as roughly humanoid in shape, rising very slowly in the sky behind an apartment block on a relatively cloudy day. Well, the 3 days of darkness is not technically acknowledged by the church, the Roman Catholic Church. Thank you, Corinne, very much. Thank you. It's not officially recognized because it's considered a personal, private experience. So thank you very much. All right. The object then seems to hover for a while. And the trouble with the clip, it's very difficult to make out what the object could be. The woman then zooms in to get a better shot that makes the object more distorted. And some have speculated that it could be some sort of balloon or drone. Others have even suggested it could be an experimental jetpack. That's pretty cool in flight. And there are some superstitions believe that it's a witch. The next story is that it's like, what do you say to that? Like, really? Oh boy, guys, have you heard of this story? This is, I don't know about this one. This one's a little weird. This one's a little, you think that was weird? Listen to this. I don't know. Yeah, a witch. Like, oh, okay, I didn't know we were in the 16th. A witch, yeah. A witch on a broomstick. You think that is a weird story? Listen to this. T.K. Randall writes this: a Chinese tech firm is building a gestation robot with a womb. The eye-opening project could provide the world's first robot capable of growing and giving birth to a human baby. This is a true story. If there ever was news, a story that seemed as though we were all living in an episode of Black Mirror, this has to be it. Some Chinese firm, I'm not even going to try to Guangzhou-based technology, is currently working on developing a humanoid robot with an artificial womb that can actually be used to gestate and deliver a baby. The robot's womb will be embedded in its abdomen to mimic a human mother, with nutrients fed to the growing fetus via a hose and form of artificial amniotic fluid produced inside. Incredibly, this seems to be a genuine product, with production expected to begin in 2026. Each robot will cost the equivalent of around $13,900. The goal is to offer an alternative to those who can't or don't wish to undergo a natural pregnancy. This idea was actually explored in the 2023 movie, The Pod Generation, in which a couple takes possession of their gestating baby that is kept inside an egg that eventually hatches. According to Kaiwa Technology founder Zhang Ofing, the new robot was designed to be humanoid so that the fetus can grow in a way that is more natural than simply being grown in a static incubator. And whether this whole idea will ever take off, however, remains to be unseen. I'm serious. That is a true story. When I read that, I thought, there's no way. There's no way. way. Yeah, that's going to be one of those crazy. This is a story of a, speaking of another crazy story, the Ouija board. We all know this one. T.K. Rand writes this: many people are terrified of what might happen if they use one of the boards. But why exactly is this? Because it's demonic. A staple of horror movies, paranormal investigations, and mediumship sessions, the Ouija board is typically operated by having participants place a finger on a planchet, which then moves between the printed letters and words to spell out a message from beyond the grave. We know how it works. Now, while many dismiss them as supernatural claptrap, others remain convinced that they are the real deal, even warning people against their use, like me. For some, such fears are so genuine that they dare not touch or even set eyes upon one. To explore the further, researchers decided to run an experiment in which 84 volunteers, some skeptics and some staunch believers in the paranormal, were asked to use a Ouija board. To make the situation as convincing as possible, the sessions were undertaken at night outside an abandoned hotel that had previously been used as a hospital during the Spanish Civil War. The participants were asked to fill out a questionnaire both before and after the session. The findings indicated that those who already believed in the paranormal experienced high levels of anxiety, altered states of consciousness, and the perception of supernatural occurrences. The skeptic group, meanwhile, experienced none of these things. Now, the researchers concluded that it was the belief itself, as opposed to supernatural activity, that produced the fear, as those who did not believe in this paranormal were not similarly impacted. They also noted that the experiment showed that the board itself was totally harmless. Bullshit. We're going to trash that. Okay. Plain and simple. I don't care what anyone says. They're evil. You mess with them. Look, demons don't care if you believe in them or not. And as a matter of fact, if you don't believe in them, then you don't realize they've already beaten you. If demons did not exist, I promise you, I guarantee you, I would not be doing what I'm doing. I'd do something else with my time. You all know by now, I don't charge for my ministry. You all know by now, I don't get paid as a bishop. I do this ministry 100% free. And you all know by now that I pay to get to people's homes out of my own pocket. So I'm telling you now, if I did not know that possession exists, I would do something else with my time. I certainly wouldn't put myself $15,000 in debt as I did before, getting to people's home to help them for free, just because. So for those of you who say, oh, Bishop Long does this for fame. Fame, you do it for money. It's kind of hard to do things for money when you don't charge. So then how do you make money? Doesn't take an Einstein to figure that one out. Now, I can understand, certainly, if I was charging $5,000 for an exorcism or $5,000 for a home blessing, then yes, you can make that argument. But only a person that has two brain cells would actually think that I'm doing this for money. I've actually put $15,000 on my credit card to help people for free. Not a hell of a lot of money in that, I can tell you that. You don't make money by spending it. So, stay away from them, no matter what anyone tells you. Okay. I think they can be. Anything can be that use like those boxes. The problem is when you investigate, someone is asking about spirit boxes. When you investigate a location and you have immediate interaction, the problem is you don't know who you're communicating with. That is the danger. And so I tell paranormal investigators all the time, you need to understand that while I appreciate paranormal investigators that they go out and they work cases. So let's say a family calls me. I can't get to all these people's homes. I just can't. So what I do is I contact a team that is local, that doesn't believe everything is demonic, that tries to debunk the activity. They go to the home, they gather all the evidence. They do the investigation. They present it to me and say, we have a problem. We need you down here immediately. Then I try to get to that family's home. Never once charging their family. Never once. In 25 years, I've never charged one time. So for you trolls out there that keep saying that, why don't you shut up and actually sponsor a family? But you won't do that, will you? But you'll troll. But it's funny that the shows never once sponsor a family for me to get to that person's home. They never once do that. Oh, no. They don't open their pocketbook, but they open their mouths. So these paranormal investigators that work these cases, I make it abundantly clear that you could be getting in a very precarious situation. And you need to understand that there are consequences for working these cases. And the teams that I work with understand that the consequences can be severe. And they're still willing to take that risk. And paranormal teams need to understand that there can be serious dangers with investigating. And that's one thing that I think the paranormal shows need to do more of. They need to start sharing a little. I understand sensationalism from you got to get viewers. I understand the temptation. I get it. But the problem also is you need to start letting people understand that paranormal investigating is dangerous. And that is not being talked about very often in the paranormal community. I've been speaking about this for 25 years. When I go to paranormal conferences, I tell people, when you investigate, you need to understand that it is dangerous. And people don't like when I say that, but I don't care. I'm not going to lie just to placate to the people's wants and needs. I'm telling you, there have been teams that I have worked with that have gone into locations that were known to be demonic. They contacted me and said, "What's your opinion?" And I told them, stay away from it. And they didn't. And then they go to these locations and they investigate and all hell breaks loose. And then they contact me, "Oh, Bishop Long, we need you to get here right away." I told you not to go there in the first place. And you still did it. So I can't promise you that I can drop my entire life, because I have now 73 people asking me to help them. And I've been working on some of these cases. And now you expect me to drop all those people to get to you because you chose to ignore my suggestion in the first place. Absolutely. Yeah. Animals, 100%, 100%. Because see, animals, the reason is I think animals are more susceptible is because they have not been told that these things don't exist. So I believe animals can absolutely sense this. Yeah, the Gates of Hell Cemetery. The Gates of Hell Cemetery is a location that I will not go to at night. I will not go to this. And I'm an exorcist. I perform 33 exorcisms, and I will not go to this location. And yet people still go to it. And then they contact me and said, "Oh my gosh, we need your help. You shouldn't have gone there in the first place. I've been saying this now for how many years?" And they still go. Oh, yeah, I'll be going to. All right, so hang tight with me. For those of you who are on TikTok, hang tight. I got to wrap this up on everybody else. For those of you who are listening on this podcast, I say goodnight to you guys. What I'm doing, we have a podcast show that it's all the shows are on podcasts. And by the way, I have my music up. So I used to write poetry. I still write poetry. And a friend of mine said, you can turn this into your music. And I'm like, well, okay, how do I do it? And my great friend showed me how to do it and helped me with it. And so I have all my music up. And so what you need to do is go to bishopjameslong.com, scroll down to where you see music, and you'll just click there, and all of them is listed. They're all listed. Enjoy. I'm not charging anything for it. You're all more than welcome to listen to it, to download it. But if you're going to use them, they are copyrighted. Please understand these are copyrighted music. So just remember this. But anyway, they are there for you. Just bishopjameslong.com. Scroll down to where you see Bishop Long's music. Yep, it's my music. I own it. I own all the copyrights. And so there was an individual that decided to take one of the songs, and I had to send them a little message and just remind them, hey, please don't do that. Don't steal. I'm more than willing to let anybody use it. Just all I ask is you just give credit where credit's due. Okay. So Saturday, we do not have a show on Saturdays anymore. Don't forget. Well, thank you there, Mr. Producer. So no Saturday shows. We'll be here Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on TikTok only for Mass. We have liturgy. It only airs there. And then Bible study at 8 p.m. on Sunday on everywhere. Also, don't forget tonight, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have night prayer. Please join us. My friends, on all the social media platforms on KGRADB Radio, remember I tell you all the time, your value does not decrease based on someone's inability or refusal to see your worth. You're priceless, and don't let anybody tell you or convince you otherwise. Good night.